Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. But first, let's get the headlines. President Bola Tinubu to steer the ship of Nigeria for the next 4 years. He becomes the 16th democratically elected president of the country. Milk queues resurface across the country as marketers jack up pump prices in reaction to President Tinubu's inaugural speech. Nigeria Labour Congress gives federal government June 7th deadline to reverse the petrol pump price, threatening nationwide protests and strike action by workers. Plus, explosions hit Kyiv as Russia attacks for the third time in 24 hours. I'll begin News Round with the swearing-in ceremony of Bola Tinubu as Nigeria's 16th democratically elected president, a historic day for the country. During his inaugural speech to the nation, President Tinubu says the era of subsidy payment on fuel has ended. He also vows to prioritize security and the welfare of the people.
It's the 29th of May, the day when Nigeria transitions from one administration to another every 4 years. The Eagle Square in Abuja is littered with security agencies and radiates beauty from the decorations and the colorful outfits of invited guests who await the arrival of the main actors of the day, the outgoing and the incoming president. In attendance are the outgoing Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, former President Goodluck Jonathan, and former Head of State General Yakubu Gowon, Presidents of Ghana, Rwanda and South Africa, as well as government officials, federal lawmakers, royal fathers and state governors in whose states there will be no handover are all in attendance. The President-elect and his wife arrive and are received by the outgoing Secretary to the Government of the Federation. The arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari signifies the commencement of the event. Straight away, the Vice President-elect takes his oath of office, administered by the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Then comes the man of the moment, Senator Bola Tinubu, for his oath of office.
I, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, do solemnly swear.
The national and defense flags are lowered and replaced with new ones, indicating the transfer of power to President Bola Tinubu in the presence of the outgoing president. President Tinubu takes a ride around the Eagle Square to inspect the guards and appreciates the guests. Next is the military parade in slow and quick time. This is followed by an aerial display by the Air Force. The already colorful ceremony is further embellished with dance and acrobatics display. Then it's time to hear from the new president. His speech begins with the unity of the country as he extends a hand of friendship to his opponents in the presidential election.
My supporters, I thank you. So who did vote for me, I thank you as well. I extend my hand across the political divide. I ask you to grasp the national affinity and brotherhood. For me, political polarization has faded away. All I see here are Nigerians. As long as this world exists, Nigeria shall exist.
Perhaps the high point for many is his stance on fuel subsidy, security, and the foreign exchange rate.
We shall reform both our security doctrine and its architecture. No provision is there for fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy is gone. The central bank must work towards a unified exchange rate. National slow! Peace
The hearty cheers and 21-gun salute welcome Nigeria's fifth democratically elected president since the return to democracy, President Bola Tinubu, and also signifies the seventh consecutive democratic transition. The president now has his work cut out for him as he's promised, among other things, to unify the country. From the Eagle Square in Abuja, Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, former President Muhammadu Buhari is back to his hometown Daura in Katsina State. The president will have the Federal Capital Territory after handing over to his successor, arrived to a rousing welcome in Daura.
Former President Muhammadu Buhari ended his 2 terms as President of Nigeria. He bids Nigerians farewell as his motorcade leaves the Eagle Square.
And Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
At the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, a presidential jet is waiting for him. The Presidential Guards Brigade is also on ground. The former president's family members are the first to arrive at the airport, followed by some of his former cabinet members, including the former vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and his wife, Mrs. Dolapo Osinbajo, and former aides. Then, the former president shows up. Only a few security attachés are around him, and the usual restrictions by security aides seem to be relaxed as Mr. Buhari exchanges last-moment pleasantries before boarding the aircraft. The Guards Brigade is then dismissed.
The fact that one was able to go through this period and we're leaving hale and hearty and all is well, I want to just thank God for that.
Very good. I had a president that was supportive, even when we have industrial unrest and strikes.
Amidst cheers, Professor Osinbajo and his wife also board their aircraft. By 12:30 in the afternoon, Mr. Buhari's aircraft is airborne, and about an hour later, he arrives at Umaru Musa Yar'Adua International Airport in Katsina State, where he is warmly received by the newly sworn-in governor of Katsina State, Mr. Dikko Rada, and other sons and daughters of the state, before boarding an Air Force helicopter to proceed to Daura, his hometown. Residents commend his leadership style and achievements. The Buhari administration is now a matter of history. The former president has maintained that he plans to stay far from the issue of governance in the country. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And hours after it took the oath of office as Nigeria's 16th president, President Bola Tinubu has formally resumed at the presidential villa on his first day of work. President Tinubu, who arrived from the Defense House, was received by the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and the Group CEO, NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, among others.
Few minutes past 2 p.m., the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, arrives at the presidential wing of the State House, and he is quickly joined by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, the Governor of the Central Bank, among others. They're here to receive the President, Bola Tinubu, who resumes on his first day in office. Soon enough, the president's motorcade arrived at the presidential gate, where he receives salutation and inspects the quarter guard. President Tinubu, who arrived from the Defense House, joins his welcome party. the Group Chief Executive of the NNPCL, Mr. Milikiari, who met privately with the president, announced a 2.8 trillion naira debt being owed the company.
We continue to support the subsidy from the cash flow of the NNPC. That is, when we net off our fiscal obligations of taxes and royalty, there is still a balance that we are funding from our cash flow. And that has become very, very difficult and affecting our other operations. I'm very convinced today that the country can no longer fund this subsidy bill and they will not be able to pay NNPC. And therefore, we are pleased to note Mr. President's commitment to elimination of this subsidy because they can't afford it anymore. And we will take necessary steps to ensure that we recover our costs from the market, and also being mindful of the fact that a situation like this can lead to exploitation of customers. And we're also working with the regulator who is here with me to see how we can cap any such excessive greed.
The removal of the subsidy, according to the Nigerian Mainstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority Chief Executive, has opened the market.
What I can assure you that as an NDPRA, we are ready to license anybody that wants to import. So there's not going to be any cap per se, but it's going to be based on the cost of importation.
As some Nigerians hail the subsidy removal, the NNPCL is confident that the federal government will kick off plans to cushion its effect on Nigerians. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And staying with the presidency, after 2 days of speculation, President Bola Tinubu has announced his first set of appointments. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, was named as his Chief of Staff, while the immediate past Minister of Special Duties, Mr. George Akume, is to serve as Secretary to the Government of the Federation. The President made the announcement when he met with Progressives Governors Forum at the State House for the first time of his assumption of office.
Activities resume in the council chamber at 11 a.m. as about 16 governors of the All Progressives Congress, under the aegis of the Progressives Governors Forum, or led by its new chairman, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, converged to meet with President Bola Tinubu in a first meeting since his assumption into office. After days of intense speculation and unofficial confirmation of the president's choice of chief of staff and other key appointments, President Tinubu finally announces his first set of appointments after 3 days in office.
I'm going to be making 2 announcements today. I'm going to appoint Femi Gbajabiamila as the chief of staff. And I'm going to announce George Akume as SGF.
Meanwhile, the new Chief of Staff, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, who had 24 hours ago craved patience on the matter, expressed appreciation on his Twitter page to the president. He says, having spent 20 years in the Nigerian parliament and winning a 6th-term election, I will work with the president in discharging the enormous task ahead. He further adds that I will give my best when I take office on June 14, 2023, as reflected in Mr. President's official letter, unquote. Meanwhile, against the raging lamentation in the wake of the fuel subsidy removal, the president vows to prioritize the subject of minimum wage.
We need to do some arithmetic and soul searching on the minimum wage. We will have to look at that. We are digging deep into the revenue of the federal government. We must strengthen the source and application of those funds.
The president, who has been meeting with various groups, including security agencies, makes no bones about his intention to work, consult, and listen to advance the nation's fortunes. Addressing State House correspondents, the PGF chairman, who led 6 governors, further illuminate on the fuel subsidy removal.
I don't want to agree that if we don't come out and say petroleum products must be subsidized, that Nigeria will not grow. The thing is pulling Nigerian economy down, and by extension, pulling the country down. So we must rise as a people to support the elimination of revenue leakages in our system so we can grow an economy that will be home-based.
The forum further appealed to Nigerians to calculate the gains that would accrue from the subsidy removal before the situation incapacitates the nation's economy. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And when Newsround returns, Phil Hughes resurfaces as President Tinubu affirms stance on petrol subsidy. That's in a moment. To stay with us. Welcome back. Well, barely 24 hours after President Bola Tinubu's inauguration speech, where he affirmed his stance that petrol subsidy will end, Phil Hughes have resurfaced in different parts of the country. Bearing in mind the pronouncement, motorists woke up early on Tuesday to join Phil Hughes to buy petrol for their vehicles as prices went up.
What will tomorrow bring?
What I've heard is that no provision is there for fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy is gone.
It is not the first time the polity reacts to issues around fuel distribution and sales. This time, it's clear and unambiguous. Government is no longer interested in paying for some of your bills when you buy petrol, which is fuel subsidy.
So today, the country don't have the money to pay for subsidy. Today, we are waiting for them to settle up to 2.8 trillion naira of NNPC's cash flow.
What will tomorrow bring? Today is that tomorrow talked about yesterday. So in the commercial city of Kano State in northwest Nigeria, long queues have returned. Down to the old rich south-south state of Rivers, some fuel stations were closed while others have jacked up their prices and are selling between 350 and 500 naira per litre.
General text message can go all around, maybe from MTN, Glo, Airtel. They can go around and send general text messages to people. Okay, from tomorrow, so thing and so thing will take place. There will be changes in so and so things. And these are your own, these are the principle that is guiding this policy. No principle, nothing.
Still from the pronouncement, our next door neighbor, people appear stranded at the petrol stations across Inaugural, as most of the petrol stations are short.
5 litres when I buy for 2.5 now, I never walk reach 1,000. The money, the fuel don't finish.
502 naira per litre. Per litre, it's going to 700.
In a Del State, it was a bit heated.
We bought fuel at 450 this morning from Kama. That's why we are selling at the rate of 500.
Hello. Let her bring it.
No, that's not true. There is no sales without an invoice.
Going up to the capital city, Abuja, few queues exist, but the prices are the same. Already, stakeholders in the downstream sector have reacted in a statement which reads in parts. The Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMAN, and Depot and Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, DAPMAN, applaud and endorse the pronouncement of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the phase-out of the petrol subsidy regime. We appreciate the clarity of policy from the Tinubu administration, a direction that signals a courageous and pragmatic shift in our nation's economic trajectory. Off quote. Which leads us to the response by the regulator.
Ourselves, NNPRA, and the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, will make sure that the customer or the consumer is not taken advantage of.
Clearly, there's been a disruption in supply, leading to the big question, how long will these queues last? What price will become the new range? Will some entities join in product importation? Will things pan out as planned by the federal government? What will tomorrow bring? Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
What will tomorrow bring?
The Nigeria Labour Congress is giving the federal government until Wednesday, June 7th to reverse the pump price of petrol or risk a nationwide protest and strike action. NLC President Mr. Joe Ajero announced this at the end of an emergency meeting of the National Executive Council in Abuja, where he also asked President Bola Tinubu to investigate payments for subsidy under the immediate past administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari.
The removal of subsidy for petrol continues to generate dust, and the Nigeria Labour Congress has summoned this emergency meeting of its National Executive Council to deliberate on the matter.
See you out on the picketing front.
First, the president of the NLC, Mr. Joe Ajero, briefs the media.
The issue of subsidy has not been probed all these years, and for anybody to close that chapter is like covering fraud. The Nigerian Labour Congress has called the NEC members for us to interrogate some of these processes, to know who and who we are collecting the subsidy money.
The meeting goes into a closed-door session, and human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falana takes the moment to address the media outside the hall.
NNPC Limited, a private company, was alleged to have fixed the prices of petroleum products or jacked up the price. It is clearly illegal. There's no provision for it under the law. So we hope that the government will have to go back to the drawing table and take the whole month, the month of June, to meet with relevant stakeholders, to plan and look for alternative solutions to the problem. And there are alternative solutions. We must learn from what other countries are doing to address this, the dollarization of economy.
Nigerians have been paying through their nose for petrol and for transportation amidst other economic consequences since the pronouncement by President Bola Tinubu on May the 29th that the subsidy regime for petrol is gone. But the NLC National Executive Council has taken some major decisions, including not talking to any person without a portfolio. The president briefs the media.
The NLC decided that if by Wednesday next week that the NNPC refuses to revert itself for negotiation to continue, that the Nigerian Labour Congress and all its affiliates will withdraw their services and commence protests nationwide until this is complied with. The NLC NEC therefore directed all state councils and all industrial unions to commence mobilization from this moment to make sure that this action is enforced.
NLC has spoken, but will the government yield? Both parties are expected to meet on Sunday, June the 4th, 2023, and Nigerians are hoping that the dark days will be averted. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Our news round ends in Ukraine, where the capital, Kyiv, was targeted in an early morning attack on Tuesday by Russia. Ukraine said it had shot down 29 of 35 drones and 37 of 40 cruise missiles fired overnight by Russia. And the Kyiv military administration said its air defenses had shot down over 40 of the targets fired at it. Russia's launched a series of attacks on Kyiv in May, using a combination of drones and missiles, mostly at night, in order to inflict psychological distress on people. And that's News Round for the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.